You want?
Can I go now? Can I go now? This is yours, right?
Why don't we go ahead and start?
You can keep, see if you can get it working. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council for Monday, May 9th of 2022. I now call the meeting to order at 6:32. City Clerk, if you please take the roll call.
Councilmember Clark,
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Here?
Councilmember Aruna,
Here.
Councilmember Thomas, absent. Mayor Urek,
Here.
thank you.
For those of you that are looking on, as you can tell, I'm not the mayor. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem. The mayor is on Zoom. He is out of town, and so I'll be stepping in for the official part of the meeting. If I may, Councilwoman, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Please stand up.
Place your hand over your heart and pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think we have, see, proclamations and presentations. We've got a law enforcement annual report that's going to be made.
That's correct. We have an annual report today. This is something that we do just as an update once a year, and we have our new police chief, Garrett Tesla, here with us today to present.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. This is a nice opportunity to be here for my first time in front of you, officially, anyway. And Mayor Urek, I should say, who's joining us by Zoom. You have the I can't see it, so.
If we could, I have my laptop, I have a problem I'm trying to troubleshoot, so I'm sorry you're gonna have
Want me
to
to vamp
just
on it? Okay.
kind of flow with it.
Fair enough, we can flow with it. So, none of us need reminding about what happened in 2020 and with COVID and all the restrictions and everything that went into place, but I'll remind us all anyway that in law enforcement we experienced a significant shift during the pandemic about what crimes we were seeing and how we were seeing those things show up in our communities. And so as I share some of the statistics that we have pre-COVID and during COVID and after, you'll see some fluctuations that may on the surface look like we're regressing, but I think can be explained by some of the COVID issues that we have. You know, when people stopped going to work, they stopped driving on the roads, they stopped having traffic accidents, when retail stores or restaurants closed, we stopped having people shopping in stores, which means retail theft went down, is one example. Car accidents went down. But as we come out of COVID, we are naturally seeing a bit of a slight increase in some of our statistics that you'll see, but we're making a lot of great progress in some of the other ones. If you're not familiar, we follow the FBI's Ucr Crime Reports, which is the Uniform Crime Reports. And every law enforcement agency in the country reports on a monthly basis to the FBI. They report what we call Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. Part 1 are your more significant crimes, your more violent crimes, or your higher felonious property crimes. Part 2 crimes are more of your disorderly conduct or public offenses or quality of life issues. The Part 1 crimes are obviously our priority. They receive the most attention. But we divide these things into Part 1, Part 2 crimes, is what you'll see in either in the presentation or you'll see in the you'll see it after the fact when we come up on it. So in 2019 to 2020, so going into COVID and then spending the majority of the time in COVID, our Part 1 crimes, we saw a 10.9% decrease in Part 1 crimes. Again, those are the most serious crimes that we saw. So we saw our violent felonies go down because, in large part, I think, because of the changes that COVID forced. We saw from that in 2020 into 2021, compared year to year, a 6.6% increase from 2020 compared to 2021. So that 6.6 is based off of that decrease from the year before. Our Part 2 crimes, in 2019, then into 2020, year to year, from 2019 to 2020, we saw a 26.5% decrease in those crimes. Very significant decrease in a lot of crimes there. And post-COVID, comparing 2020 to 2021, we've had only a minor rebound of about 3.9% in those numbers there. In traffic, we had a 2.7% decrease in traffic collisions from 2019 and 2020. Again, expected with less people on the road. And we've seen a jump post-COVID in 2021 with a 5.6% increase. I'm sorry, decrease. Yes.
May I stop you for just a second?
Of course.
I'm getting text messages that say that the sound is not working. So if you can address that, please. Probably on channel 23. I don't know. I'd have to ask Charlie or Dave if we're getting sound on Zoom. I didn't see any.
Yeah, the sound is working on Zoom fine.
Thank you.
And Comcast
Even though I'm in Arizona, I can hear it well.
Comcast was working on a new system and troubleshooting something today, so it may be a Comcast issue.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine. Our calls for service have decreased since the beginning of COVID as well. About 7.5% year to year from 2019 to 2020, and another 6.5% from 2020 to 2021. Our calls for service related to those people experiencing homelessness has roughly stayed about the same throughout this time. I actually expected it to go up based on the economic conditions, but it's actually gone down slightly. In 2019, we had 101 calls for service related to people experiencing homelessness, and this last year, 2021, we had 91, so we're down 10 calls for service. So, in a percentage-wise, that's actually significant, 10%. Citations and reports taken remained about the same through all those years. The thing I want to emphasize about the Part 1 crimes is that year to year, from 2019 to 2020 to 2021, we had a 40% decrease in the city of Salt Lake in the violent Part 1 crimes, the violent felonies. That's homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. So a 40% decrease, and to be completely honest too, the vast majority of those are aggravated assault charges. That would be an assault on someone where injury occurred, significant injury occurred. So we've seen a significant decrease in that over the last 2 years to equal out a 40% decrease in the violent crimes. Our burglaries, which is one of the things we're most concerned about in general, those have decreased from a high in 2019 of 18 calls, or 18 reports and offenses in 2019 to 8 in the last 2 years. And we're holding steady there. And that's a number I'm very happy to see. A number that I will point out that has increased, and one that I'm not surprised at all to see, is our increase in larceny, just your theft, petty theft, and grand theft charges. It's not something, it's something I would completely expect to see given the financial hardships a lot of people are going through with COVID, and a combination of that and the end to statewide cash bail. The end to cash bail has resulted in a lot of the same repeat offenders receiving a lot of the same citations. And combine that with the financial hardships, I'm not at all surprised to see that larceny increased in general. But overall, our Part 1 crimes numbers have gone down since 2019, from 119 in 2019 to 113 last year. This can get in the weeds too, so I don't mind any interruptions if you have questions. For Part 2 crimes, in 2019, we had 245 total reports of Part 2 crimes. Examples of those are, again, the quality of life issues and the public disorderly issues. That's curfew and loitering, disorderly conduct like drunk in public, drug offenses, public drunkenness, DUI, embezzlement, forgery and counterfeiting, fraud, liquor law violations, prostitution and vice, runaway. Those are just a list of the Part 2 crimes. I'm not saying we had all of those here. 245 of those were in 2019, and in last year, in 2021, we had 187. So that's a 24% reduction in the quality of life crimes that we often see, and those are numbers that I'm very enthusiastic about. We also, one of the things that I noticed in our statistics for this year is we've seen an uptick back in narcotics use, narcotic offenses. Something also not surprising given the fact that we have to do a lot of citation releases because of bail, because of no bail. In the public drunkenness offenses, we've dropped, those offenses have dropped by 50% over the last 2 years. So I think there's a combination of things there. One is directed enforcement at the establishments that do serve alcohol and education with them on their requirements through their ABC license, but also the lack of opportunity in 2020 for bars and restaurants to be even open to have the offenses even occurring. And then this year, 2021, just starting to come out of it, I see that we're holding at a 50% drop over the last 2 years. One thing, again, that I'm not really surprised to see is a spike in the fraud reports. Anytime you experience any sort of years of financial hardship or years where you have inflation or cost of living increases like we do, or you have something like a pandemic, I would expect to see fraud charges increase, and those have increased from 1 in 2019 to 10 last year. That especially goes when people are online and doing a lot of their online shopping and buying through Amazon and other places and not leaving their house, or using their credit card to purchase through places that they think are reputable, but turn out that they're not. Another one I want to point out, simple assault charges, that's just basically simple fighting or fighting with minor injury. Those charges, we had 40 of those in 2019. We've cut those in half over the last 2 years to nearly 50% to 21 last year.
Since you're open to questions,
Please.
You said there was an increase in drug arrests.
Mm-hmm.
Having been going to the Project Opioid meetings, I am curious because the stuff I had seen showed not much in the way, at least, of the opioid problems. Is that solving or San Ynez Valley that you're seeing the drug arrests in, and what kind of drugs?
Well, this is specific to solving, but an important thing to note, of course, is that where those drugs are coming from is not known from the data itself.
Gotcha.
So I can give you anecdotal evidence that it's coming in transit. A lot of it is transiting through, right, one way, or east or west or north or south. But we do have a population that experiences some level of addiction, particularly with opiates, right? So I wouldn't be able to give you a complete answer based on just data, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
We have a presentation available if you want to point out any graphs.
Sure. We can go back to the second slide, and I'll just try and highlight what I mentioned there.
Do we have sound again?
This one?
Yeah. So here you'll see that in Part 1 crimes, we had a slight rebound from 2020 to 2021 after COVID. And also in Part 2 crimes, traffic collisions decreased year to year. Over a 2-year period, that's a pretty significant decrease in 8%. And we have some traffic enforcement plan for the future as well. We know that that's a key issue for your citizens and a big concern for people, particularly on Chalk Hill and in Skid Mesa. And also our calls for service, like I mentioned before, decreased. And the next slide. Again, our homeless calls for service, percentage-wise, it's roughly a 10% drop, but reports taken and arrest citations given were roughly the same. And of course, I want to point out too, those aren't citations or arrests for being homeless or experiencing homelessness. Those are things related to the initial call being of someone or a homeless activity, and then there being some offense that had to be dealt with once we were there. We don't write a citation for being homeless, of course. You'll see the 3-year scope there on that bar graph. That's a little bit better example of it, the calls for service over the last 3 years. And then there you'll see how the aggravated assaults, that makes up the vast majority of your violent crime, Part 1 offenses. Robberies did go up, 2 in 2019, 1 in 2020, 4 in 2021. Robbery is oftentimes associated or connected to larceny. Those two are often interrelated, and what starts as a simple shoplifting can turn into a robbery very quickly if someone is using force to affect the robbery, or affect the theft rather. If they use any sort of force on the victim, it turns into a robbery. So though you see an increase there, I think just the natural increase in the larceny charges, to me, explains why we have an increase in robbery charges. We don't have a particular issue or a particular group of people or a particular concern about robberies in general. It's that larceny is increasing, and those larcenies can quickly turn into robberies as a result. And then, I think I covered that. These are a list of the Part 2 crimes that we report to the FBI. Again, that top number in bold, the 245 in 2019, down to the about 25% reduction in 2021, and talked about the increase in narcotics or drugs and the increase in fraud. Those are the two that stick out to me as being things that we're seeing as a result of what's happened in the last 2 years. Next slide. And again, just a review. Now, of course, if you look, Part 1 and Part 2 crimes are only a small portion of really what we end up doing. Your calls for service involve self-initiated calls, and the calls for everything from neighborhood disputes to noise ordinances to the kinds of basis that don't end up getting reported to the FBI. So we're, as I would expect in 2021, we're coming back up in our numbers of calls for service as people are moving about. They're experiencing things more often. They're not holed up in their homes anymore, thankfully, which is good, and we're happy to be there for them when they need to call us. Before I open for more questions or comments, I was asked to speak a bit on trends, and I think one thing we're going to see a lot more of, or in the next coming months, if not years, is a continued increase in auto theft, just in general, and a theft in catalytic converters. We know that catalytic converters, that piece of the vehicle, is a hot commodity right now, with a shortage of cars nationwide, particularly used cars, and used car parts. Those catalytic converters are a hot item, but we are seeing in some of our neighboring jurisdictions and in other parts of the county that vehicles are being stolen to be chopped, but also just for a joyride. And that is part of that larger problem that I think that we are experiencing of having to deal with a citation release more often than a custodial release, or custodial arrest rather. But I think those two are things that we're going to experience. I expect that retail theft is going to increase as shops open again, and now that we're fully open in 2022, I would expect that to adjust a bit. As cost of living increases, as inflation increases, as people lose their jobs, we expect that people are going to become desperate and will make decisions in those areas as well. We're doing a lot of efforts on the opioid pandemic that's going on, and that is going to be a priority for the Sheriff's Office for years to come. It is the single most effective thing we can do to save a life is to tackle the opioid epidemic. As I always, anytime I get in front of a microphone with the public, I want to remind everybody the simplest way to not become a victim of a crime is to don't allow yourself to become a victim of a crime. Lock your doors, keep your garage doors closed. Yes, you all live in a wonderful area, and you're lucky to live here, as I know you are, but that doesn't mean that there's not people coming through looking for an opportunity. And so the simplest things we can do are the easiest and are the most effective things we can do, which is lock our doors, keep our garage doors closed, lock up your bikes, etc. And with that, I'll open it to any questions.
Have you seen any increase in gasoline theft?
You know, in general, no.
Surprising.
It is, because the second day that I was assigned to my vehicle, my gas was stolen out of my patrol car. So that is anecdotal. I've seen an increase. I've seen a 100% increase in my gas stolen. But in general, no, that's not a theft. That's not a report that we're seeing a big hit on.
That's a
Not to be fair,
bold offense.
Yeah.
There's a pintail and a police car. Let's hit the police car. What about fentanyl? Are you confiscating any in town?
Oh,
Are you seeing
absolutely.
it?
Absolutely. We've been seeing fentanyl for years. And
For years?
For years, yeah.
In Salt Lake.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And again, where it's coming from is up for debate, but it is definitely here. And it is something that we've been dealing for a long time. It's turning out that a lot of the initial beliefs about how dangerous it was and how, just how dangerous, just inhaling it, touching it, any of those things could cause someone to overdose, are turning out that that's probably not true. And that it's as dangerous to handle as anything else, any other narcotic.
Oh, interesting.
So, not to say you want to touch it or you know, be around it, but it is not quite the danger that it's not the danger to touch that was made out to be originally. Ingesting it is absolutely, they're on point with that. It is so much stronger than all the other opioids, and it's mixed with everything.
That's what kills me, is that the people are mixing it with cocaine and other things like that. It just blows my mind. Having 2 kids in college, you get so nervous with somebody offering something at a party. Just don't touch it, because you don't know.
We've seen it mixed with every kind of drug you could imagine.
Legal drugs as well as illegal.
Well, if it's a legal drug, right, and it's coming from a prescribed source, what you have a lot of time is people who will supplement.
Yeah, it's not the legal, sorry, when I say legal sort, they're illegal copies of, they're duplicates.
Oh, yes,
They're not.
Yeah, and you don't know what the dosage is. No
Well,
clue.
even if I saw pictures of exactly the same pill from a prescription company and from a drug maker, and you can't tell the difference.
Oh, that's scary.
And if they have fentanyl in them, you don't know what percentage.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And it can kill you. So that was the part of it that drove me.
Very scary.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one, if I may interrupt.
Sure.
I'm gonna keep my video off because it's a little grainy, so hopefully you can hear well. Chief, if you wouldn't mind expanding on the topic that you were talking about for traffic. I know we had talked about hitting a few areas for that, and I know that I have had a number of folks contacting me about specifically Viborg and Milton Tottenham Viborg along that corridor, Fjord, Copenhagen in the morning with the high school students bypassing, going through the Nyborg estates and then up 5th over to Copenhagen and blasting through town over to Alice with the high school. Just some of what is Solvang planning right now? If you could expand on that for everyone.
Sure, thank you, Mayor, for bringing that up and not let me forget about that. We've been working with your city manager here and the mayor, and we will be announcing or planning some overtime and some additional enforcement specifically for traffic in those hot button areas, all the ones he just mentioned, and all those quote unquote detours that the people in those neighborhoods are experiencing. And we're going to do it with some assistance from some of our motor officers that are assigned to some of the other cities. But they have some specialized training in radar, LiDAR, and in DUI detection and other expert capabilities. And they're on a motor, so they're very adaptable, they're very maneuverable, they're a little more high profile in the city. They kind of stand out a little bit when you see a motor unit in the area. So they'll be working on a variety of shifts, which I won't share in the public forum because I want people to be on their toes for them. But they'll be out there in the coming months to educate people and remind them about the traffic laws and their obligation to follow the traffic laws in the city, and then we'll move from an education standpoint to an enforcement standpoint as we go.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. There we go. All right,
Anybody
thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Chief. Okay. So public communications on non-agenda items, and if you would read the directions for those, please.
Council welcomes your input. At this time, you may address the council on items not on the agenda and on consent. Time limit is 3 minutes. We will start with in-person comments first.
And I have received one public comment request from Hank Humbert.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and our mayor who's on vacation already. He's only been retired, what, a week or two, and he's already on the go. Anyway, I would just like to briefly bring up, it's kind of interesting that the chief just did his talk because it's kind of what I want to talk about. And that is the sheriff's contract, which is killing us as far as our budget goes. It went up, way up this time. So I asked another contract city next door, Buellton, and I talked to city manager Wolf, and he concurs about the opportunity to possibly do a feasibility study, but he needs the council's in Buellton's approval to do such, as I would assume Zena would also need your approval to look into a feasibility study with regard to looking at other policing options besides the sheriff's contract. I've talked to Eddie, I'll kill his last name, Eddie Sue, yeah. And we've had multiple conversations, and the biggest point against the sheriff's department is the way they bill, which is the DSU, or the Deputies Service Unit, which we get paid, or we pay them 24/7, 365 for everything that the sheriff's department gives. So we have one deputy, say he makes $40 an hour. Turns out to be $300 an hour with benefits and everything, which I understand. But then we're also incurring the cost for detectives, homicide detectives, the jail, the sheriff's helicopter, I'm imagining, all these things that very rarely do we partake in as far as use goes. So hence our contract is based on that DSU situation, which is really expensive. So again, I'd like to encourage the council here and maybe work with Zena about looking into a feasibility study. It can happen with Buellton, us, and possibly even the Chumash Casino, because they contract also. And maybe San Ynez Valley Police Department. Right now we have one deputy, and they're having to pull in overtime, as the chief said, which I appreciate, for traffic enforcement, and it's definitely needed here in town. And it's not the tourists, it's the people that live here in the valley that are the craziest speeders and the stop sign runners. So I appreciate that point, Chief. Thank you for answering that, and thanks, Charlie, for bringing that up. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you very much, and I hope you consider looking into a feasibility study for options, because it's only going to go up. It's not going to go down. And this last time it went way up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hank. I have another comment request from Dennis Beebe.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Mayor. I'm Dennis Beebe from Solvang. I just wanted to make an announcement because I don't think it's part of the agenda, and that's concerning the San Ynez Airport. There's 3 points. Number one, there's a move afoot to change the airport's name. And the name change would be to Kunkel Field. And that brings my second point. On the 21st, there's Airport Day, San Ynez Airport Day. On the 28th, this is Saturday, at 11, there's a celebration of life for a young man. Everybody is a young man. For Jimmy Kunkel. He's the son of Jim Kunkel, Sr., and Ruthie Kunkel, who are from Solvang. And we lost him to cancer a few weeks ago. And there's a celebration of life at the airport, Hangar F,
at 1100 on Saturday morning at 28. That's my second point. What was my third point? Airport date, San Ynez, Kunkel Field. I guess I've covered it. Well, Jim and Ruthie Kunkel are residents of Solvang. Jim is a World War II P-38 fighter pilot. And there are 3 generations of Kunkels who have done aviation, made the aviation their life. Jim, Jimmy, and Jimmy's son Chris. And they have a major operation at the Santa Maria Airport, where they serve as general aviation, but they also serve as firefighting aircraft. So it's a major operation. It's in the family, it's in their blood, and just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Do we have anybody else in the room that would like to make a presentation? It's not on an agenda item. Do we have anybody on Zoom that would like to say anything as a general comment?
Mayor Pro Tem Infante, this is Mayor here. I was just a comment. I am trying to see if what I'm looking at is David Packard's screen on Zoom.
Sorry, it's Zena is here. I'm operating the screen, Mayor.
And it still shows the PowerPoint for the sheriff. Just wondering if we could.
The one that says questions and comments?
That's my question. There we go. That's much better. Thank you.
Get it back to BYU athletics.
Interesting. All right. So there's no other comments from the folks on Zoom? Thank you. Who? I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't see your hand. My apologies. Please come to the podium. You're being too shy.
Am I?
Be a little bit more.
Hi, my name is Vashti Wilson, and I just wanted to announce that we are doing another Juneteenth. It'll be the 3rd annual celebration, Saturday, June 18th, in Solvang Park from 4 to 7 p.m. We will be honoring Iris Rideau. She was the first Black woman to own a winery in the United States, and in honor of her, Rideau Winery is doing something special. We will also have the Afro-Brazilian group from Santa Barbara coming up again, an 18-piece drum band, arts and crafts for the kids. We have Princess Tiana coming in on a monkey, and she'll be doing singing and dancing, story time with the children. Face painting, glitter tattoos once again, High on the Hog Catering will provide the catering as they did last year. It was a wonderful menu if you got to enjoy it with us. Pulled pork, macaroni and cheese, black-eyed peas, greens, peach cobbler, and sweet potato pie. So that menu will be on board once again. It is Saturday, June 18th, Solvang Park, 4 to 7 p.m. Everyone is welcome, and it's a time for us to come together as a community. It's very laid back, a lot of fun. Children are running around, and it's just a beautiful time. Any questions, you can email me, Vashti Wilson, at juneteenthsyv@gmail.com. That's juneteenthsyv@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you sooner. Appreciate that. Okay. Nobody else at this time? Then may we have the city manager's report.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here once again. So I just want to continue to remind everybody, and if we can zoom into the Zoom screen at this point, that this week we will have the second housing element workshop taking place. It will be on May 11th from 6 to 7 p.m. This is the second discussion on the housing element. The housing element, I would just remind everybody, is a required element by the state of California. There's quite a few requirements coming onto all of the jurisdictions to increase housing and provide those zoning regulations, general plan amendments to allow for additional housing. So as part of the second workshop on the housing element, we'll be discussing with our consultant different possibilities of particular parcels that the consultant and staff have identified as still available for potential housing development. As part of that discussion, we'll also be continuing to talk about the preferred land use element or alternative that the council and the planning commission have already adopted, which was to include DR20 zoning within the TRC, within the downtown area. So definitely encourage everybody to participate in this one. This is very important input. The state also looks at all of the input from the community. All of the comments will be actually included in the final report that goes to the Housing Authority at the state. So it's an important one for everyone to participate in. So this meeting will be on Zoom only. It's a virtual meeting. But it will be through the same login as you log in here to join the City Council. As a second item on the general plan update, we will be moving into discussions about the community design element update. The last time the community design element was updated was in 1987, which was actually just a couple of years after the city had incorporated. There's also the design Board of Architecture Review design guidelines that are available that are a little bit newer, but they're largely based on this community design element. So on the 19th of May, the Design Review Committee will be holding a special meeting at 3:30 here at City Hall. This meeting would be both in person with a Zoom option, and this will be the beginning of a discussion with the Design Review Committee who actually use these design guidelines for approval of all the projects in the city of Solomon and ensure that the authentic look of Solomon is maintained. So this will be a first conversation for the DRC to start looking at the element and also discussing what type of amendments would be recommended for that. After they make their recommendations, those recommendations will go to the GPAC as well as the Planning Commission and the City Council. So this would be an important meeting once again for everyone to participate from the community and join us here at the City Hall. It would be important for the Design Review Committee, of course, to have community input as they begin these discussions. Next, we have another item that will be coming up for public discussion, which is still the outstanding question of the European-style Plaza project. So when the City Council had reopened Copenhagen Drive, there was also direction to continue to work through the general plan update on a concept of whether there would be a place and a desire for the community to invest into a European type of plaza. So in order to continue to have that conversation, we'll be continuing to work with consultants and schedule another community workshop, which will be specifically focusing on this subject only. Speaking of special events, we've just had a couple of comments on that and have another item on the agenda later today. This past weekend was rather busy on May 7th with the Solomon Half Marathon taking place in the morning, as well as the Rancheros Visitadores doing their ride in the afternoon. This was their 90th ride, so everything went well this weekend, but it was definitely busy and will continue to stay busy with events that are being proposed going forward into the summer. So you just heard about the Juneteenth event. On June 24th, we have a Pierce Aero Society car show, which is another new event that is being proposed to take place in the city of Solomon. It's actually a national society that migrates from one location to another, and they would like to hold it in Solomon just this one time this summer. And then on June 25th, we have the event that is being considered later on the agenda today, which is the SYV Pride event. Now we have a couple of proposals for services advertised, or one of them actually closed. The marketing services RFP closed on Friday. We received 7 responses, And the Tourism Advisory Committee will be evaluating those proposals at their next meeting. That should be distinguished from the contract, which is for the Visitor Center. That contract is also coming to an end at the end of June. However, that RFP continues to be open through May 20th. And you will see on the picture that we have some local representatives who are working at the Visitor Center. So we definitely look forward to continue to work with them, as we've heard all the positive comments about their performance. Now looking at the advanced calendar, next meeting will be all about the financial plan. We've been talking about this for a while. So on February 26th, the City Council had adopted major City Council goals or priorities for fiscal year 22-24. So staff has been working in light of those priorities that you have set forth for us, and we'll have recommendations for you for programs to incorporate in both operating programs and the capital improvement program in order to respond to those priorities. So as part of that discussion, you will be looking at all of the revenues, all of the expenditures that are being proposed for major operating funds, which is your general fund, your water and wastewater funds, and that will include discussion of operating programs, any recommended changes that are significant that would be up for your consideration and approval, as well as the 5-year capital improvement program. We'll also have consideration of the grant funding applications that the city has received through that program. There's a couple of special events that have submitted requests, which are Danish Days and 4th of July. Community capital projects still have a couple of requests for consideration, which is the Senior Center new building, as well as the Theater Fest. And then lastly, there is a request from Chamber of Commerce for funding and partnership with the city in the next year. And then on June, of course, just a reminder again that we'll be talking about the municipal election resolutions and moving forward with that. The utility rates Prop 218 hearing is scheduled for June 13th. Those notices have gone out to all of our utility billing customers. So we look forward to everyone's input on June 13, which would follow by your potential adoption. We'll also be looking at the drought ordinance proposed modifications in order to align that with proposed new rates. The fiscal year 22-24 will be coming back for the financial plan for your final adoption, and of course we'll be coming back with contract recommendations to award the marketing contract and the visitor center contract. The sales tax and/or/TOT tax measure is moving forward. So we'll be doing some outreach on that and posting some materials to let people know that this is actually a valid phone call, because in about a week or so, about 200 residents and voters will be receiving phone calls asking them their opinion on how they feel about any of those measures. And so that will be coming back to you as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the council?
I do have a comment regarding the two events that we had this Saturday. There were some comments about it being a bit inconvenient that there are road closures while the rancheros visitadores are trailering horses and equipment all over the place. However, they said that it was more of an inconvenience. There weren't any major any major problems to deal with. We are curious, how did we end up with both events at the same time? My understanding is that once that events are approved by the council yearly, they can just automatically happen, but I'm just wondering, if we have a way to deal with scheduling that way.
Yes, and I kind of wonder how that happens myself a little bit. I know that because I think of the every 5 years there's an extra day in February, and I think they just happen to align, is what it sounds like, based on those event holders plan holding them the first Saturday or a certain date. So every 5 years they just align to be on the same date. But of course, we can have some conversations with both of those events and see if there is a way to make any modifications every 5 years to maybe separate them.
Yeah.
Once we have an event manager hired and in place, that shouldn't be a problem again.
Yeah.
And a universal city calendar.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hint.
I also received several calls and text pictures about Saturday's events, and why is this happening twice or two events the same day? Also, why is the street, we open the street up or we close it again for these businesses that have nothing to do with Solvang. Then we had a separate section on Farmers Market that was closed for just 2 vendors. So I got an earful on a few things this last week.
Mayor, did I hear you speaking up?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that particular bit. As Zeman, our city manager, mentioned, about every 5 years, the stars align, and the first Saturday, which has historically been, because it's been 90 years that they've done this, the Rancheros run the day of the Kentucky Derby. And the Wine Country Half Marathon initially started as the day before Mother's Day, and this particular year, it happens to be the first Sunday instead of the second Sunday. So again, this is not the first time that we've had this double event. This is the third time that I'm aware of since I started doing this in 2003 with working the community events. But I do know that because of this type of confusion happening because of the road closures and all that stuff, that I've spoken with the wine country organizers, and they're looking at possibly having it on a totally different day, maybe in April sometime, but just so that it would alleviate some of that issue.
Can I add something to that as well? But one of the complaints that I think is valid is that a lot of the visitors had a hard time with their ancillary groups, and other people that were coming with them had a hard time getting hotels, and the restaurants were real crowded because the marathon people were already here. So at least I know why. I didn't know the 5-year star line thing, so at least I should have done more homework and understood that when they called the first time to explain that, but I didn't know at the time, so I said, let me call Zena.
We all do that a lot.
A lot of the hotels were also taken with a couple of the weddings that happened that same day,
Yeah.
during the same time frame in the afternoon. So it was not just, everything was busy. We also had the Brew Fest in Buellton that same day in the afternoon, as well as I believe there was an event going on out in Los Olivos. So it was a busy day in the valley all the way around.
It's a popular place.
And just I had the opportunity, because the mayor was not available at the time, to go out and present and welcome the runners from the half marathon. So I was out there talking to the primary announcer, and he said there were 1,900 runners here. So we filled up a lot of hotel rooms just with marathon people. It was amazing. They were very well organized. Everything worked really well. There was some minor issues. Yeah, you're opening up and closing streets and things, and it's, hey, I had a heck of a time getting back to my house from the start of the meeting, of the event. But it was wonderful. By all accounts, went off very well for the runners and everybody else, and so it is one of those things we do that brings in a lot of attention and a lot of visitors to the city. So in that regard, it was pretty good. Any other comments?
Just are also aware both events, Rancheros donated over $1 million, I think it was close to $1.5 million to the breast cancer awareness campaign for our areas. The Wine Country Half Marathon people, they donate to the high school, some of their track programs, the tennis programs, the app programs, as well as the Hidden Wings autism classrooms that they have right there on Saturday. So all of these events, while they're also good for the tourists, they also benefit our valley and our residents specifically, and our businesses.
Thank you. Excellent point. I should have mentioned that. Appreciate it. No other comments from the council?
Do you want to mention the JPIA?
Yeah.
Or later?
Or we can do it now. Yeah, well, we have everybody's attention. Yes. Councilmember Clark and I attended the California JPIA Leadership Academy this week. earlier this week at Palm Desert. And it was a wonderful 3 days where we got an opportunity to learn about what JPIA does, which my understanding was that they act as an insurer for regular city practices, but they also have a lot of programs to mitigate risks. That is making the city safer, less likely to deal with litigation, so that instead of spending everybody's tax dollars on lawyers and litigation, we spend it on local programs and infrastructure and things that benefit everybody. Do you want to add?
Actually, I've been to several conferences, and this was probably the most informative, and I got the most out of this as far as risk management, and sadly to say ethics, because there was a big focus on the city of Bell. And
3 hours
their antics.
of no-nos.
And so I'm going to ask for a resolution that we start paying the council members $100,000 a year. If that's okay. Some of the stuff is just like, really? But it really was fascinating, and it's neat to see how the JPI works and works with our agencies like ourselves to mitigate risk and to protect cities like Sullivan. There's 98 members in JPIA, and it was extremely useful. So I'm very happy that we were there.
Excellent. I'm glad you could make it. Okay, at this point then, let's move to the consent calendar. And Madam City Clerk, if you'd read the items on the consent calendar.
Consent is designed for routine administrative city matters and is approved by roll call vote with one motion. These items are discussed only on request of council members. Members of the public were afforded an opportunity to speak on consent items during the public communications portion of this agenda. Item 4, consent items. A, approve order of agenda as presented. B, approve the minutes of the city council meeting of April 25th, 2022. C, adopt resolution 221168, a resolution of the city council of the city of Solvang, California, authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the city of Solvang meeting bodies. D, approve warrant register for the month of April 2022. E, adopt resolution number 221169, authorizing the city manager to execute the certifications and assurances and authorized agent forms for the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, LCTOP, for the SYVT bus and charging infrastructure project for $152,002. F, receive and file SBC Sheriff's Office January and February 2022 monthly reports. G, approve contract amendment number 5 with Meridian Consultants LLC and contract amendment number 4 with GSI Water Solutions Inc. for participation in and preparation for the administrative hearing regarding the city's River Wells project. GI, approve amendments number 5 to the agreement with Meridian Consultants LLC and amendment number 4 to the agreement with GSI Water Solutions Inc. for professional services to participate and assist in the preparation for the administrative hearing regarding the city of Solvang's petition for change to its permit to divert Santa Ynez River underflow before the administrative hearing officer of the California Water Resources Control Board. 2, authorize the city manager to execute amendment 5 with Meridian Consultants LLC in the amount of $50,000 and amendment number 4 with GSI Water Solutions Inc. in the amount of $96,700, and approve a budget amendment in the amount of $146,700 from the water fund balance to cover the costs. 4H, authorize the city manager to send 30-day notice canceling the marketing services contract with Cogs and Marble in accordance with the contract terms in preparation for restructure of marketing operations. 4I, receive and file quarterly investment report January through March 2022.
Do any of the council members have any items they want to pull?
I don't.
I do. I would like to pull item H. I just have a couple of questions and comments on sending the 30-day there will be a gap where we have no marketing services between canceling the contract and having a new marketing that hopefully we can establish a long, functional, and mutually beneficial relationship. What are we gonna do in the interim? Do we have a plan?
So in the interim, there's really, as far as the events management, we really kind of at the end of all of the approval processes, but most of the work for actual that takes when the event takes place in town is handled by our Public Works Department, so that will be handled through them. We have received the RFP for the marketing services, so we'll move quickly working with the Tourism Advisory Committee on that contract. There's also, we have options on standby to do just the minimum or continue the efforts standing on social media, so that will continue. We also have available PR option with Anna Ferguson to continue to work, which the city has been working with her independently as well, so we can continue to push out the news into the newspapers as we progress with restructuring of the marketing services. Depending on how the conversation, that will be really a point of view for your discretion at the next meeting on the 23rd on how you want to structure the marketing coordinator. Once you have some direction from you on which way you see that structure, we'll be advertising that as soon as possible as well, so we can onboard somebody fairly quickly at the beginning of the next fiscal year. So at this point, with the existing staff and subcontractors and other contractors on standby, we can continue to sort of do what we do with the marketing efforts. There's really no recommendations for any additional events sponsored by the city, and frankly there's no room in the calendar for any additional events. So at this point it's more about the transition between Cox and Marvel and onboarding the next marketing coordinators for us marketing services.
Okay, so you're comfortable that we're not gonna have a void or a black hole between now and, as we get ready to ramp up for the busy season, some of the merchants are really concerned about, and we're not marketing solving, but a lot of the points will be going forward online and things like that, so that we won't miss a beat there.
Correct, we'll continue with the ongoing efforts.
Okay.
We just won't be developing new strategies or new events in this.
All right, that's what I was gonna say, thanks.
Hopefully we can get the new marketing contractor up to date pretty quick and get them moving pretty quick. Stiletto Marketing, what's her name, Anna
Ferguson.
Anna Ferguson is gonna be helping with the social media, so she's good, she seems to be doing quite a bit.
Good.
Which reminds me, if you had, I think everybody here got a copy of the USA Today what do they call it, top 5?
Top 10.
Top
Yeah.
10.
Yes.
So if you go to USA Today and you can vote for the top 10 items in all these different categories. Solvang is in 2 categories, small historic town and small really cool place.
Best small town cultural scene.
Oh, cultural
Yes,
scene.
yes.
Small, really cool place. I like that.
Yeah.
But we're right now, I voted today, and right now we're 3rd in the voting on the historic and 6th in the voting on cultural, the small town with most culture type of thing.
Behind Fresno and Needles.
Right? No one's at Fresno and Needles, but these are cities all over the country. And I think it was Aspen? I don't know, someplace else.
We're in good, okay, we're in good
Doesn't matter.
company.
We are getting off the subject a little bit. So good. Any other comments, questions? I will entertain a motion then to accept the consent calendar.
I'll second it. I'll second whoever makes a
You're making the
motion.
motion. He's asking.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it.
Second it.
Would you take a vote, roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Tom is absent. Mayor Yurick.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante, I did have a request.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if we could move item number 6 up to discuss it right now. I understand, Ms. Golzar is, not feeling well, and would like to, she's pregnant and would like to be able to possibly finish earlier than later.
Finish the comments, not the pregnancy.
We hope so.
Well, the way he said it, I just wanted.
Good point.
Any objections?
No?
Yeah, okay, then let's move, item number
I
6.
make a motion that we move item number 6 to item number 5.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Council, Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Aruna,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas, absent, Mayor Urich.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, so if you'll introduce item number 6
I
then.
will introduce the item. So this is a new event being proposed for this year, and probably it's ongoing. This event is S5E Pride event, which is proposed to be taken at the Solving Park, as well as have a parade. We do have the applicant here to answer any questions, and the applicant had presented already this proposal to the Tourism Advisory Committee. The Tourism Advisory Committee had reviewed the proposal and had unanimously recommended that the event take place in Solving as proposed on June 25th, 2022. There is a little bit, you received additional materials today, this afternoon, that clarify some of the asks as part of this application as compared to the original application that was included in your packet. So I think the most important change that you should be aware of is that having worked with Cox and Marvel, the applicant is now proposing using the a different parade route, so it wouldn't be the option B on our application. It would instead be what was included in the late distribution today because of the materials being received after the packet was originally distributed. What they're proposing, and there's a map included, using the Yule Fest parade, basically, the one that doesn't go on mission. So this would be the one where they would start on lot 72, turn right on Alisal, left on Copenhagen, left on 2nd, left on Oak, and then right back onto Alisal for dispersal. That was the route that was used during the during the Yule Fest parade. This does not require the Caltrans permit, given the time and where we are today and the proposed event date. I would say that that's probably the only option, or not going on mission is probably the only option that we would have at this point, because Caltrans does request longer timelines to process. Other than that, we'll continue to work with the applicant to make sure that they would get all of the permits from ABC and the public health for their vendors. That concludes the introduction. I can pull up the map here. Actually, it won't be seen so well, but the applicant is here if you have any questions.
Council members, any questions?
I have a comment.
I have a question about, great, go ahead, Charlie.
I'm sorry. I just want to mention that I don't believe lot 72 would be available. That would be something that we would need to have an ask for, so we are really not allowed to say, I mean, we can approve it based on possibly using lot 72 for staging. The area that they did indicate in that map is not an area that we're allowed to even be on.
Right.
So if we did get permission, it wouldn't be in the area where they were talking about. It would be further south of that location. Typically, it would better, and what had been done in the past is nothing on lot 72. Everything stages right there on Alisal Mesa to lot 72 from Alisal Road. And you can break the street in half, and if it's no park, it's pretty ample for getting a really long line of people staging. So I just wanted to put that out there for you. We do not have permission because it is not part of the original contract It's a new event, and we would have to ask permission from them, and they would have to get approval from their board. So short of that, we would want to just say that the staging would have to happen on the public street and not in lot 72. So I just want to put that out there right now.
Yeah.
So everyone's on the same page starting off with that. Otherwise, I think we're fine.
Thank you. That was one of my questions too. If anybody got hold of Tom Walton or somebody out there that controls the Lot 72 lease. Other questions or comments?
I have a question of the organizer. I'm funny, because I didn't see it, there was not a parade on the special event, but I see it on the second page. So there is going to be a parade in Solvang, right? And my question is, Solvang and San Francisco are two separate places, and I lived in San Francisco for 8 years, and I'm very familiar with the Pride Parade. And this is a family-friendly town, it's not San Francisco. Will there be naked people on the floats?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, have you told people that though? Because there's a lot of kids in this town, and I
Yeah.
really don't want to see people twerking half naked on floats in Solvang.
No, this is not going to look like the San Francisco parade,
Okay,
at least not
perfect.
this year. And we really are centering it around the youth, so no naked people on the
Thank you.
front, yeah.
Good.
We will be having drag queens at some of our other events, not at this festival. It's a week-long Pride Week thing that we're doing, so we are not by any means asking the drag queens to tone down their acts, but no, they're not going to be naked either.
Any other questions? I have two other questions that came to my mind. In reading the original proposal, and I didn't see if it was changed in this update. One was it talked about food trucks. Are you still planning on food trucks?
Just a couple vendors, the Doggy Door hot dog cart and Rudy's Mexican.
Can we do that for special permits on this?
Yes, we allow
Because they're not allowed
Vendors.
normally.
for special events.
For special events they are. Okay. Excellent, thank you. 172, there was one other question. Okay, and although the parade route shows ending up here on First Street, the actual party, if you will, is gonna happen at the park.
Yes,
Okay.
right afterwards.
The only comment that I will have, I'm very much looking forward to this. It looks like a great event. The one thing that I saw in the application is that you're planning on bringing food vendors, but there is no plan for additional trash receptacles on at the park. And I would strongly suggest that you guys do, because anytime that you have mobile food vendors, trash happens, and the trash receptacles that we have in the park are not enough. So just to give you guys a heads up.
Great, thank you.
That reminds me also, do we have the restroom facilities? Are we gonna have porta potties out there?
There is no, at this point, the application did not assume additional porta potties.
How many people are gonna be in this parade?
In the parade, maybe 100. We're mostly marching.
I think we're gonna need some, if they're all gonna go to Central Park, I think we're gonna need some extra porta potties. I think we need to modify this permit to require, as Councilwoman had said, trash receptacles and porta potties.
Well, we have parameters for how many porta potties you need based on how many attendees you expect, and I don't recall it
know
off the
what
top
those
of
numbers
my head right now. But I think I don't know if you need one restroom for every, and it depends if it's male or female, honestly, I don't wanna say, cause I don't know.
It more depends on the age. Some of us go more often than but that's something I think we need to look into, please.
Okay. We can work with the applicant on that. So sufficient trash and sufficient bathrooms, additional modifications, requirements to the permit approval.
Yeah, and there's lots of local vendors that can, do both trash and porta potties if you need them, so,
Perfect.
yeah, you shouldn't have a trouble.
Okay, great,
With that.
noted, thank you.
That and lot 72. That idea, that getting permission or moving the assembly area to a different place.
We can definitely coordinate with the Santa Barbara Historic Trust and ensure that under our lease, they are aware that we would be requesting utilizing it for a special event.
Very good, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have anybody else that would like to make a comment on this subject? Yes, ma'am. Oh, is that
That's me.
Mary White? My apologies.
No, that's fine, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, friends and neighbors. I am here with a concern for this particular issue, and that being because of everything that this country has been going through with human trafficking, child trafficking. I think the timing, I'd love to see you table it, because I think the timing is really tough, both for those that are going to be involved in it, because there's an awful lot of emotion going on here. And that's not a threat, that's just saying I'm a mom and I was a person that was abused. And it's very hard to hear and see these kinds of things going on. It's not light. I understand they're going to have a good time, but what's happening right now to our children and some of the women that they're finding is tough. And it's especially hard on those that have been through it. So this is not about me, but it's about our country. It's about people in this area. And I'm asking you to please give no one in this town or even in this valley, I think, even knows very much about it. Let them speak before you do something like this. Please, let them speak. That's all I want to say. Basically, that's it. I have nothing against that agenda. People do what they want. They have free will to do. But taking it out into the public, I don't know that this timing is right. So, God will not be mocked. You answer to a higher position. None, all of us do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for allowing me to come up and speak again. I do want to clarify that the special event application on page 9 outlines the requirements for use of the porta potties. And it's approximately 1 restroom or toilet for every 100 people. And so if the public restrooms are sufficient there, I'm not sure exactly how many are over there in that building. I have it here from Jenny.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. And so, and the same thing, it says the trash cans and everything with more than 1,000 anticipated attendees. So I'm not sure how many Gozar is expecting, but those are the requirements in your application. I would like 3 minutes to respond to the last comment, and I say this with pure intentions. I am an Air Force officer veteran. Afghanistan is where I was stationed. I am also the mother of Madison, who has Maddie's Treasure Box, former teacher, math and science, and we will also be participating in the parade in support of SYV Pride. I do want to clarify that to equate pedophilia with a pride event is problematic for me. And I think, especially with everything being so tumultuous, that what we should be doing is supporting one another and lifting each other up. And when the name of God is invoked, it should be one of love and support and collaboration and community. And I believe that that's what this event is bringing to the community, and that is why I will be there, and my 9-year-old daughter will be there to support, as we support every other event in the community, because that's what we're here for, and that's what we do in this community. So I appreciate Gozar taking the time when she didn't have to allow certain community members to feel that they are welcome and seen and a part of this community as everyone else is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room would like to speak? Yes, Lieutenant?
I just want to take a moment as your police chief and reiterate that, we have a division of detectives dedicated to human trafficking, and we take that very, very seriously. And it is very much a priority for us and along with any agency. However, there is nothing to suggest that human trafficking has anything to do with the LGBTQ community. And I've been working with these people already on this event, and I'm excited for them. I'm excited to attend it myself. And I just want to emphasize that, again, as your chief of police, that we at the Sheriff's Department support their ability to do this event. And we have no concerns when it comes to what ancillary crimes may be attributed to them, that there's no basis from when it comes to what we look at statistically. I gave you a presentation earlier on crime and stats in Solvang, and this is not a concern for me when it comes from you. Coming from me as your chief of police, this is not a concern to me.
I have a question though.
Yes, sir.
There are every city has decency rules and how things that people look at.
Of course.
And that'll be enforced in Solvang.
We will work with them beforehand to make sure that that's not even an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Anybody else? Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak? Okay, we'll bring it back. Do we need to approve this, or
It would be an approval, yes.
can I have a motion then?
I will make a motion that we approve the permit for the Pride event.
I'll second it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes?
Councilmember Aruna,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas, absent, Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay, so now we get to move back to what was item 5, right? And is now item 6. How am I doing, Dana, have I got this squared away?
I think our city clerk prefers to just keep them as the same numbers, the way she tracks items, so it will
That's fine
remain
with
number
me.
5.
So number 5 it is then. If you would tell us what the agenda item's about.
This is a public hearing to consider adopting resolution number 221170, confirming and levying assessments for Solvang Mesa Landscape and Lighting Maintenance District number 2004-1 for fiscal years 22 through 23, and authorize the city manager to execute the certifications on behalf of the city. That the city council conduct a public hearing to hear testimony on the proposed assessments for the Solvang Mesa Landscape and Lighting Maintenance District, and after hearing testimony, adopt resolution 221170, a resolution of the Solvang City Council confirming and levying assessments for fiscal year 22-23, and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the city to place the assessments on the property tax roll for fiscal year 22 through 23.
Thank you, and I will introduce this item with our Public Works Director, Roger Olds. This is an annual report that has to happen every year as part of the LLMD in order to assess the assessment that funds the services that we then manage for the Skid Music community. Roger?
Thank you, Zena. So this is the staff report for the resolution of assessment confirmation following the previous staff report that was given on April 11th of this year, a few weeks ago. So again, these are the lots as part of the landscape and lighting maintenance district for Solvang Mesa, which is everybody knows as Skip Mesa is the name of the subdivision. And So where we're at in the process, so actually, a couple misspellings there I just noticed, but where we're at in the process, so we've done the first few bullet items, we've reviewed the cost of the budget and established for next year's budget. We've adopted, initiated a resolution on April 11th, 2022, and which initiated their preliminary engineer's assessment, approved the preliminary engineer's report, and we set the public hearing date for today. Now what we're looking at is, what we need to do is adopt the assessment resolution, and then when that moves on, the assessment engineer coordinates with the county tax assessor's office, sets the assessment with the property tax roll, and then the funds that are collected are transferred to the city. So if we can go to the next slide. So for fiscal year 2023 assessment, we recommended keeping everything par for the course. Basically the same that they've been charged over the last year, and then that will cover the cost of the ongoing maintenance by Brightview, which is the landscaping firm that's working out there, and then also cover the other utilities and other costs that are incurred by the landscape lighting district. So all lots, all 169 lots will benefit equally, and there is a special project that's reviewed. I did work with one of the residents that in regards to the proper location of the street lighting, so I'm going to be working with PG&E to adjust those. I've kind of adjusted it on this exhibit, this reviser's exhibit, so we're going to try to get the light a little closer to the intersection of Mission Drive and Skip Mesa Drive. So the recommendation is to open the public hearing and receive public comment, close the public hearing and discuss and provide any direction, and then adopt the resolution of assessment. And thus concludes staff's report. We're here to answer any questions.
Any questions for the staff report? In that case,
I had one.
yes, please, go ahead, Mayor.
I just wanted to double check. I had seen an email from Mr. Milliken that he had met with you, Roger, on different placement from what was initially proposed of those two streetlights. I just wanted to make sure that that still is an ongoing, it's still ongoing discussion, and or has it been finalized?
The location has not been finalized, Mayor Eric. The exhibit that I showed in the, if we can go back one slide, this exhibit that shown at the bottom here, this reflects the locations that were discussed with Mr. Miller. So I did revise that. So this is understanding what the community is looking for, and I'm going to work with PG&E with their design to adjust it to these locations.
Great, thank you very much. I know that was a concern of quite a few, so just wanted to make sure that happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the report? In that case, let's take it out to the public. Are there any questions in the room? Anybody present? It's not too many people present. Anybody on Zoom? No? In that case, we'll bring it back to the council. Is there a motion to adopt the selected map and adopt it by title for second reading of ordinance 22-356?
I will make a motion that we adopt resolution 22-1170.
I'll second.
Oh, me a Coke.
Can I get in there?
Sure, yeah, sure, you can have it.
You mean Charlie.
And if I could just jump in, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you made reference to adopting the map and an ordinance. This is a resolution from ND, and there's no ordinance being proposed at this point.
Thank you for that clarification, Attorney. I appreciate that. I was led astray. It says it right there. In that case, we'll roll call vote, please.
I did lead you astray. I apologize.
That's fine.
That was definitely my error.
Luckily, our attorney is paying attention, and he caught that
Thank you very
slight
much.
misstep.
Yeah, good catch.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas, Councilmember Thomas. Absent. Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we go on to item number 7 on the agenda? If you would read the agenda item for us, please.
Fiscal year 21 through 22, third quarter through March 2022 financial report. Receive and file current fiscal year third quarter financial report.
Thank you. So this is part of a series of the quarterly financial reports that we do as an ongoing oversight over finances as we progress through the year, comparing our trends and actuals to the budget. So today the report really focuses on where we are to date, primarily in revenues. The expenditures for all operating funds are pretty much in line with our budget, so there is no big news to report. However, if we look at some of the trends in revenues, you will see that we are actually doing quite a bit better than we had anticipated at the beginning of the year. If you would recall, when you originally adopted the current fiscal year budget, including the revenues, we were still coming out of the COVID-19. There was a lot of uncertainty still whether the state would continue to change regulations, where any additional shutdowns would continue. So we budgeted a little bit on the conservative side. Through this presentation, one part of the message will be really how well we are doing, but how well actually other jurisdictions are doing as well. So what's the cause and causation for this rise in both TOT and sales tax is really the economic trends and great improvement recovering from COVID-19, and everybody seems to be traveling, and Central Coast is doing really great. So on this slide you will see that the trends of transit occupancy tax. The bars on top kind of show the last 3 years comparing revenues month by month. And then the chart on the left shows receipts for annual receipts in TOT. So you see the annual increases from year to year. If you look at 2005, 2006, we used to collect only $2.1 million, whereas right before COVID-19, the last normal year was 18-19, which totaled $4.5 million. In 1920, obviously we had a rapid decrease due to COVID-19. That was at almost 26% reduction in TOT collections. And now we rebounded in 2021 once travel was allowed once again, and we benefited from being a safe location to travel, as well as people not being able to travel to Europe and attracting people to come see the Danish capital of America. So we did well in 2021, and we are doing even better now in 21-22. You'll see that through February we were at $3.8 million, so we anticipate to be approaching $5 million in our annual collections. The budget at TOT was only $3.6 million, so we will be well over budget on this trend. This is a comparison of the sales tax or the TOT for Solvang, as well as just a few jurisdictions that are neighbors or maybe useful to compare. The first column shows the 18-19 totals, which was pre-COVID-19, and then the second column is TOT collections through February, so that we can compare February to February. The third column is the current collections in the current year through February. So you can see that for those jurisdictions where the data is available by months, which is Solon, Buellton, and Santa Barbara City, which are good comparison jurisdictions being our neighbors, you can see that percentage-wise Solon has increased TOT collections by 30.7% from the 18-19 levels to 21-22 from beginning of the year through February. Buellton has done a little bit better than us, increasing by 37%, while Santa Barbara is at 30%. So it's pretty equal. Obviously, there's also some fluctuations based on the available rooms. Buellton did have the Hampton Inn go in at some point before the COVID-19, so that's probably helping them, while we have Hudson House, for example, is under renovation right now. So But you see that the trends are pretty similar, that tourism is really on uptrend, and we are doing well in terms of those collections. Now this slide here shows sales tax, which is also a similar story of success, to where you will see that, and don't pay attention to the percent decrease in 21-22 because that's not a full year. But you will see that in sales tax, what's interesting actually that we, in last year, 2021, had exceeded pre-COVID-19 levels. So sales tax was a record high of $1.6 million. And this year we're already at 1.3 through February. So we're also going to be exceeding our highest years, probably approaching about $2 million in total collections. The budget was only $1.4 million, while receipts to date are 1.3. So once again, we will be exceeding the budgeted amount. So all of these additional revenues, while expenditures remain to be steady, will positively impact our fund balance and our reserves. On sales tax, though, it's important to talk about the trends in sales tax. I'm sorry, the slide is a little bit small. But the economy, if you see in your reports, had the real growth, the GDP growth seasonally adjusted at 7% increase. So that was higher than compared to a year before at 6.4%. The unemployment is also dropping, being at, let's see, unemployment is 7.7% or 6.5% in California. 4 to 5% is usually considered to be full employment. So economy right now is doing well, but to say it's important to remember that there is other economic trends happening right now, including the inflation, which will definitely start to show some results. So when we budget and when we talk next time about the next year's revenue trends, we should be still cognizant of that this economic expansion may not be lasting for a long time, but we'll have more discussion on that. The chart on the right shows you our sales tax gains by type of activity. So you'll see that the general retail, which is on the very top, has definitely had a healthy gain. Our food, which is the yellow, has had a very healthy gain, which is probably where we're seeing the most increases. While construction has kind of returned to pre-COVID levels of 2018. So that's today's update, that we are doing rather well for the moment, but also should be cautious about our forecasts in the future.
Thank you. Any questions for the staff report? All right, public comment. Is there anybody in the public who would like to make a comment about the economy, about the trend?
It's like a radio announcer.
Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to make a comment? Nobody? In that case, public comment's now closed. Let's bring it back to the council for discussion and action. We need to just receive this, correct? This is not requiring an approval?
That's correct, that's just a report file.
Okay.
My only comment, this is encouraging. And my only worry is that COVID hit, people didn't travel over anywhere else, so they were coming here. Now, with gas $6 a gallon, I mean, how's that gonna affect us for the day trippers? It's like whack-a-mole. Every time something good happens, you gotta something bad happens. It's just like, can we just have a couple of years of just peace? That's my only comment.
That is he gets carried away, but there was a great comment that says the gas prices are going to likely affect how well we do for the next couple of months. But we have an event, we have several events coming up, all of which should attract people. The gas prices obviously didn't hurt anything this weekend.
We definitely have an upscale base.
We do have an upscale base.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I was told we had people from 34 different states in that race.
That's pretty cool.
That's from all over the country, and 4 other countries, by the way. Chile, Australia, Canada and Mexico. So that race, that's, those stats really encouraged me a lot to say we're doing very well.
We concur, very encouraging for everyone.
Thank you, Mayor, I agree. All right, so do we have any AB 1234 report? That was actually, you gave that earlier, didn't you? So we don't have any of those? 1234 report, yeah. Any last comments, last items of discussion?
Were we going to be approving or discussing the Pierce Arrow car show?
It's
Yes, Mayor, that is a new event that was not submitted from our consultants as a package for consideration, but it is a new show that is proposed for June, so we will try to fast track it and yes, bring it for your final approval.
As a comment related to that, when I saw it on the schedule, that's a Friday, and that is the first Friday of the movies in the park. So you may want to make sure that that doesn't interfere with that going on that's already on there.
See, we don't need it. We don't need an event manager. We have Charlie.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Actually, that's an excellent point, though. I hadn't thought about that at all, the conflict with the movies in the park.
So the show would be cleared by 3 p.m., so I'll definitely coordinate with our recreation division.
Okay.
Yeah, the sooner that we can get that somewhere where we can look at it, the better.
I would agree.
I have to say, I think it's kind of a coup that it's pretty cool that we got Pierce Arrows coming to Solvang. Young people are like, what's that? But, I mean, when did they stop making cars? Do you know?
Late 20s?
Probably, yeah. That's really exciting. I mean,
Those were amazing vehicles. They were all custom built. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
Interesting. Okay.
You all have a great week.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Have a good time. We are going to adjourn the meeting at this time at 8:13. No, 8:08. Sorry. It's a record, isn't it? It's adjourned.